Superdads. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to talk about my experience doing a cut, cutting fat, that is, not cutting construction paper or cardboard. You can tell I have kids. Doing a cut on HIIT. So this is the first time that I've gone through a proper cut while doing HIIT training, and I wanted to share some of my experiences and reflections on doing it, what was successful for me, and hopefully some of that will be useful for you as well. So I started my cut at the end of June the beginning of June this year, so May, very end of May. Up until then, so I basically did a bulking period throughout most of the winter, and then in spring I was sort of in maintenance, and then when June rolled around, I thought, okay, time to get in shape for the pool and the beach and that kind of stuff, as that season comes around a little bit late in Japan, so that would give me enough time. So I started at the beginning of June, and I reached my current weight, the weight that I'm at, and the weight that I'll probably stay at. I don't think I'll cut any more than this, around mid-September. So altogether, it took about 3 months and change to get there. So let's take a look at the pictures, the before and afters. So here you have the before and after results. You can see the 2 dates there, which the pictures were taken, and below that you have the weights. The left is kilograms, so 106 kilograms down to 95 kilograms, down 11 kilograms, and pounds, 233 pounds down to 209 pounds. So that's a loss of 11 kilograms or 24 pounds, which constitutes more than 10% of my body weight. As for measurements, I lost 5 centimeters or 2 inches off of my waist. And you can see in the left, I do still have visible abs, even my starting position. But, there's clearly a layer of fat over the top of them. On the right side, much less. And with the chest, it looks like I lost size in my chest, but the measurements don't say that I, in fact, did lose much size. I'm only down 1 centimeter or so on the post cut, so that's like half of an inch or something like that. So some of that could be from muscle, but some of it could also be from fat. And if you notice the way the shadows are playing around my lats, you can see that the lighting is a little bit different. Apologies for that, but the measurements don't lie, and I think it's pretty hard to make the argument that this is even close to all from lighting. So there you have it. Mostly fat loss, clearly, based upon the measurements. And these are the results that I was able to achieve. Now, again, I didn't try to do this fast. I could have done it much faster if I had wanted to, but my goal was to maintain as much muscle mass as possible. And that involves doing it kind of slower. A drastic cut is going to result in more muscle loss. So I wanted to do it kind of slowly. And also, it would be more sustainable. It would be less painful that way. I ate a lot of protein to make sure that the muscle mass, stuck around as much as possible, and got in those hard workouts, the hard HIIT style workouts as well. I could go lower than this if I wanted to. It wouldn't be hard. I could, at this point, I'll talk about this later in the video, but I'm eating a totally satiating diet and maintaining 95 kilograms, the after weight, with no problem whatsoever. If I wanted to cut down another kilogram or 2, I don't think that it would be that hard, but it's just not that interesting to me. We're going back into winter, and not a whole lot more beach time. Plus, I'm happy with the way that I look, and my performance is good, energy is good, libido is good, focus, productivity, all of those things that would tend to go if you get super, super low in terms of body fat. Or anything outstanding, but they are, I think, achievable by most people, and the methods that I use to get there might be helpful to any of you out there who are looking to lose fat despite having a ton of stress in your life and a ton of stuff going on. And I will also point out that it's often easier, not even often, it's sort of by definition easier to lose fat when you have more fat to lose. As you get closer to being lean, as you are lean, that remaining fat gets harder to lose. I mean, that's just the law of diminishing returns. It's an economic reality. And so, my starting position here was not super lean, but it was also not anywhere near overweight or fat or anything like that, right? Probably around 14% body fat. I did a scan. It wasn't a very accurate scan, but it put me at around 8%, and those things are typically around 6% off or so. So I would say 14%, obviously still visible abs at the very beginning there. So I'm already somewhat lean, and so losing 10% of my body weight from that point on is significantly more difficult than it would be to lose if I was more overweight. So having said that, I did this without tracking a single calorie, and that is in part due to the fact that I have tracked in the past, so I have a good sense of how much protein I'm getting, because that's a really crucial ingredient in this process, and also the overall calories that I might be getting. But I didn't even establish a baseline this time with the tracking. I did it all through intuitive eating, through habit change, from little tweaks and things like that. I also didn't do any dedicated cardio. I never said to myself, do exercise 0 times did that happen. So my workout schedule is basically 2 workouts a week, HIIT style training, and getting after it with the. And I also trained martial arts like once a week on average, something like that. Now that martial arts training wasn't super intensive because I was actually teaching the classes, and so there's less. You get less activity when you're teaching typically than when you're the person doing all the drills. But still, it could account for some burning of calories. Now, the first thing I did to begin this process was I switched from full-fat dairy to low-fat dairy. If you're somebody who gets a lot of dairy, whose a lot of their protein comes from dairy sources, and that's certainly my case, it's cheap. It's a full spectrum of amino acids, highly digestible and usable by some people, at least by me, not everyone certainly, but in my case, it's a great source of protein. So I do get a lot of my protein from dairy. And so switching from full fat to low fat represents a significant loss of calories and without really sacrificing anything. And so that's usually the place that I start when I begin a cut, is just making that switch, because it's the really low hanging fruit that also has a great return on investment. So that took actually a couple days before I started to see my weight drop, which is strange. Normally it drops faster, but this time it took about a week before my weight started to drop. So I'd be interested if anyone else has a similar experience, starting a cut and not seeing your weight change right away, and then it sort of catches up. And then I continued losing weight on the other end, even after I stopped restricting. So it was almost like there was a little bit of delay. First time I've experienced that, and I wonder if anyone else has that experience. Okay, so once I stopped losing weight on just reducing the full-fat dairy to low-fat dairy, once that weight loss sort of plateaued, the next thing that I did was I basically removed snacking from my life. I stopped, eating a chocolate here or a little piece of something else there, and I said, all right, I'm just going to have my proper meals. That'll be where all of my nutrition comes from the day. And I did this second because this is something that's often harder to give up. So I wanted to start with the easy stuff. The dairy is the easiest one, and then I moved on to snacking, which is a little bit trickier because we get cravings and that kind of stuff. But slowly whittled that away, and then that was gone. And once my weight plateaued again, I then decided to sort of reduce my carbs down, and that just involved when I ate my meals for the day, I would just have less of whatever the carb source was, less rice, less bread, less whatever it was. And I never got to the point where I was eating like 0 carbs or anything like this. It wasn't even close to ketogenic. I was still eating carbs, still fueling my workouts. It was just a slight reduction in the carbs. And then, I maybe reduced that 1 or 2 more times after that, but still each time it was a tiny reduction. Noticeable, but I never really felt it that much. And so by the end I got down losing 10% of your body fat. I began to feel a little bit hungry near the end there, but it was never that uncomfortable. It was always just, I feel a little bit hungry, right? The only other change that I made was that I switched to so I'm a teacher by trade, my day job. And so when I had classes, I switched to working at a standing desk. Instead of sitting down in between my speaking to the class, I just kept the desk standing so that I was on my feet a little bit more during the day, just to keep the activity levels a little bit higher, that sort of stuff. And that's all of the changes that I made. After I got down to my goal weight, so like down to 95 kilos or 209 pounds, I think is what it is, I made a couple more changes in order to make my life more enjoyable. I basically slowly reintroduced some things. So I started eating a little more carbs still, right? Adding those slowly back in. Added snacking back in to the point where now I'm at the same weight. My weight hasn't changed, but I've eaten birthday cake. I had ice cream yesterday. Lots of birthday cake because we have a lot of birthdays in September. All these sorts of things. I just had a piece of chocolate, right? So the snacking is totally back in, and I'm totally able to have those sorts of treats. And because I slowly reintroduced the stuff, my weight hasn't really changed. My metabolism has just sort of adjusted to it and kept up with where it was. Now, the one other change that I did make to accommodate the extra calories that I was putting in is I upped the frequency and volume of isometric work that I'm doing. If you aren't using isometrics in conjunction with your sort of deficits, calorie deficits, or in order to help control blood sugar or just overall body weight, you're missing out. Isometrics are really accessible, safe, and very effective for that kind of work. I actually did a video a long time ago, one of the first ones on this channel, where I went from being in somewhat of a bulking phase, and I went to a deficit, and I changed all my training to isometric training for 2 weeks. And within the first week, I lost 3 kilos, which is like 7.5 pounds in a single week, from just doing absolutely focused on isometric training and a slight calorie deficit. And you can't lose 7.5 pounds in a week from just a calorie deficit unless you basically stop eating. So that to me was a good indication, and there are studies out there that show a deficit with isometric work is a very powerful combination. So I upped that volume and that frequency, and as a result, I've been able to basically eat whatever I want to feel totally satiated and to maintain the weight that I'm at now. So there's a breakdown of how I approached this. HIIT worked fantastically well for this cut. I feel like I look better than I have in a while. I feel like I'm still strong. My performance in the gym has continued to improve despite the fact that I've dropped so much weight. My numbers are going up on most of my exercises semi-regularly, so that's another thing to take note of. So overall, very successful experience with high-intensity training and cutting. I hope that this was useful for you. If you're interested in the kind of exercise that I'm doing, really short, very intense, highly effective, super safe, these kind of exercises that are specifically designed for people that might not be able to make it to the gym or don't have a lot of equipment, this kind of stuff, you can check those out down below. There's a dumbbell program and a bodyweight program, and there's also a free program that you can check out if you want to take a tiny step but not jump in with both feet. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your attention as always. Take it easy.